Hi friends, my name is Jordy Adumi, and today I'm going to be talking about the extensibility inside of the Windows command palette, which is wicked. It is an awesome extensibility system. The APIs are great. It's super easy to get started. And I want to talk about this project that I've been building, which is this NBA extension. I've been having so much fun building it that I figured I could show how to build an extension pretty quickly because it's quite easy. So if you're a beginner who wants to find a new project to program and learn a bit more about programming and build an actual application, I think this is a great place for you to get started. And if you're an expert and you've been programming for decades, I think this is also a really fun space because it's a refreshingly easy thing to do and it actually is quite powerful. So for me, I'm a huge basketball fan, and with this extension that I've been working on, I'm able to kind of really quickly find all the games that I'm interested in. So I'm a big Lakers fan, and I can see the next time that they play, which is tomorrow. I can see the time that they're playing it. I can see who they're playing, what their relative records are, etc. And on top of that, if there were actually a game going on, I've made it so that I can actually see the score. So I'd be able to see the score, and I'd be able to see, what period it is, etc., etc. I guess in basketball we call it quarters, so that's kind of what you would see. And I figured I'd take a second to just show a little bit about how that process has been for me, and kind of just give some kudos to the Microsoft team who've been building out the extensibility system for the Windows Command Palette because it is really awesome. So I'm going to have a bunch of different timestamps in the video. You can skip around to whatever seems the most useful for you. But what I'd like to start doing is just explaining extensibility in the command palette a little bit. So the first section here, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the command palette. And inside of the command palette directly, you can go ahead and find a bunch of different extensions. And there's two ways to install extensions. So you can do that from Winget, or you can do that from the Microsoft Store, which is really cool. I actually didn't know you could do this until very recently, and it's quite awesome. So maybe we'll actually start with this Microsoft Store. So if you launch that command, it actually takes you to the store, and you can see there's tons of different options for things you can install that make the command palette more extensible. There's also this Winget option, which is pretty cool because with the Winget option, you can actually install directly inside the command palette. So I can show you here, I've installed this Hacker News extension. You can see it's already installed. And now what these extensions do is they provide commands within the top level surface. And if you're interested more about the command palette, I've made a video about 8 months ago that talks a lot about the command palette. There's tons of docs. I'll put it all in the descriptions. Excuse me, I'll put all the links in the description. So check it out. But what we're going to be doing now is actually building an extension from scratch. And this will just be kind of exploring what those APIs look like, what the interfaces look like, kind of how you get started. And then probably in future videos, I'll actually try to publish my app essentially to the store. And I'll definitely try to publish to Winget as well. And I'll show you all the different thoughts and ideas. I have a lot of ideas for where I want to take this extension. So right now, it just kind of shows the games and the scores when there are games that are live. But I want to be able to show rosters. I want to be able to show a lot of really cool things over time. So anyways, now let's talk about how you get started building an extension because it's quite easy. And so all you need to have is Visual Studio installed with a few components. I'll put in the description what version of Visual Studio. Right now I'm using 2026 actually, and I just have some installed components. It should all be outlined inside of the PowerToys GitHub. So basically this command palette is part of Microsoft PowerToys, which is all open source, which is awesome. And yeah, I'll make sure you're all set up in the description below how to get started with the Visual Studio version that you'll need. But let's go ahead and talk command palette and start creating. So there's actually a command inside of the command palette, which is pretty awesome, which is this create extension command. And it's going to generate a new command palette extension project. Okay, fairly simple. So let's go ahead and create the extension. What you'll need to do is give your extension a name. So they want a valid C# class name, which basically means no spaces. You kind of always do this. I'm forgetting the name of this case style, but it's recommended to include the word extension in the name. So in this case, we'll just call it YouTube sample extension. Okay. And then here we'll call it my YouTube sample extension. So this is the display name. So actually when you type in here, if I type, oh shoot, I'm using the command palette. I can't actually show you what I meant here. That's fine. I'll show what this means in a second, but it's basically going to be the name of the command and the name of the application at first, but we will change that. And then here you need to put your output path. This is just the folder in which you want to be working. And so I've already copied over my dev drive and where I store basically a lot of my projects, and I'll click create extension. And just like that, you've created your first extension. Okay, so now that we've created an extension, we want to open up the solution in Visual Studio and we're going to start writing our extension code. We'll navigate to this extension page.cs to start adding items to the list, or this commands provider to add new commands. I'll explain a lot more in detail what those mean, but what's really nice is all you have to do is click open solution. And while that's loading, I've actually gone ahead and I've created with one of the extensions inside the command palette, this to-do list. So this to-do list is actually an extension that is provided, from the Microsoft Store that I've installed. And you can see here that I'm actually overdue on all these things that I wanted to do, but you'll see it's kind of just going to keep me on track for this video. So the first thing we want to do is create an extension. And so in terms of creating an extension, what we want to do specifically, and you'll see now that this list page has this awesome details view. So we want to build an extension, we got to start somewhere. And what we're going to do is we're just going to create an extension and we're going to deploy it. And when it actually interacts with the command palette is when this piece is done, when this piece of the puzzle is done. So now what you'll see, I'm just going to close this. I'll close this. It should show up again later. Let's go ahead and view our Solution Explorer. Now what you'll see is the project has been created, the YouTube sample extension. It's created a page for us. We'll see that inside of this pages folder. And importantly, it's created this extension commands provider. And those are sort of the big entry points into a command palette extension. So what I'm going to do to start is I'm just going to click the play button. And what you're going to notice is, and let's go ahead and dock this. Okay, what you're going to notice here is that it's going to go ahead and build. It's going to compile all the code that's already been, built for us, and it's going to deploy an application. And so actually, if you look at, for example, the NBA command, you'll notice this here, this NBA CmdPal extension, this other thing. This is actually a packaged application on Windows. And so all of these extensions, at least all the ones that I've seen, and I'm pretty sure this is the case for all the extensions, they're AppX packages, which just means they're signed packages. So if you're building an extension, you're actually building a Windows application. And this extension itself, like my version, all it does, this application, all it does is provide a command, which is the view upcoming NBA games. All it does is provide a command to the command palette, but you can see other extensions, and I'll show one later on in the video, that it's a fully fledged app on its own, but it just still provides command to the command palette, which is pretty sweet. So now it says that we are ready. I've actually deployed this application. And one thing you'll have to do while you're building is you'll have to reload the command palette extensions. The reason for that is when you launch the command palette, it essentially checks to see all the extensions on the system. And now you have to reload if you're kind of like building on the fly. And whenever you make a change, you're going to reload. That's just part of the process, the way that I found it. So here you can see, boom, look at that. We have a new command, my YouTube sample extension, that's the command. And again, you'll notice that you've built a Windows application. So if you've never built a Windows application and you're following along or building your own extension, congratulations, you just built a packaged, a signed Windows application. And there you go, you have an extension. So let's actually see what happens if I open or if I trigger this extension. You'll notice down here it says open. So let's go ahead and open this. And you can see that they've given us some boilerplate to do, like implement your own extension here. So now we have a page, it's called My YouTube Sample Extension. And inside of this page, you get all that filtering and sorting, searching kind of by default out of the box. So here we are, we have now actually created an extension. It's an actual application on my machine and it's provided a command, which is pretty sweet. So what I want to do now is actually, I think that we can mark this as done. So what I'll do is you'll see that I have this create extension. I'm going to go ahead and mark this as done. So let's mark it as complete. And we can see here now we've created an extension. Very nice. If you're following along, you've also created your own extension at this point, which is really cool. The next thing that I wanted to do is kind of change the text for the top level command and modify the accompanying list page. So the top level command is sort of like the entry point into the application or your extension. And I want to just change some of the boilerplate text. That's all this piece is. So in order to complete this, we actually have to start going into the code and making a few changes. And we're going to make just a few simple changes. And I'm going to outline kind of how the command palette and the extension sort of work here. So let's go ahead and open up the commands provider file that's created for us. And you'll see inside of this file, you'll see a couple of interesting things. The biggest thing to take note of is this top level commands method. So it basically creates this commands provider class for us, and that implements this command provider, which is basically part of this awesome extensions toolkit. So everything that we do is kind of just abstracted away into these classes. You don't have to think about any of the nitty-gritty details. It's really awesome. And what you can see here is this top level command just returns an array of commands. And each command itself is called a command item. That's just a class from the toolkit. And it takes in basically a command here, a page in this case, and it's got a title. And so if we wanted to change the name of this top level command, which again, this is the top level command, this thing here at the top level. If we wanted to change the name of this, we could go ahead and change that to something a little different. So I guess what we'll do is we'll kind of recreate a mini version of the NBA extension that I'm working on. So it's not going to be exactly the same, but we'll just do the same thing. NBA sample command. Let's call it that. So now what I've done is I've changed the top level item, and we're gonna have to reload to see the changes take place. But before I do that, I also want to change this page. So instead of just having one item, let's go ahead and show how you can have multiple items. It's quite simple. And let's change some of the text. So you'll notice here, there's this YouTube sample extension page inside of this command item. So if I go ahead and click there, you're gonna go to this new class, and this class implements this list page, right? List page. Again, everything's just coming from this toolkit, so you don't have to think too hard about it. It's all been kind of abstracted away. And in this class, once again, there's this method that's very important. It's called get items. And so what happens is when you invoke a command that is a page, so in this YouTube example, when you trigger that command, you're actually going to trigger this method, which is going to get the items, and it's going to return this array here of all the items inside of the list. And so instead of just one item, what we can have is a few items. So let me go ahead and copy this and just paste a few of them. And actually, maybe I'll undo that because what I want to really do is I'll also change the text. So let's go ahead and change the text here. So I can just change the title and we'll, maybe we'll just mock up what it might look like if it were a real NBA extension. And maybe we'll have like verse, I don't know, they're playing the Nuggets and the Nuggets are 100 or 1005. I don't know. Again, just hard-coded information here. But what I'll do is I'll copy this, and I just want to show that essentially all you have to do to provide a bunch of list items is return an array of these list item classes. Don't worry about this no-op command for now. We'll talk about it later. It essentially means that the item itself doesn't do anything. It just is visual. And here you can see some of the title descriptions. I'll go ahead and change some of these just to show that search and everything is kind of out of the box. Celtics, ugh. Having the Celtics next to 1006 makes me cringe, but that's okay. And now what we'll do is we'll reload. So we reload the command palette extensions, and what we should see is all these changes. So just to go back here, we changed the name. So now what should happen is if I type YouTube, I still see my YouTube sample extension, which is not correct. Let me try to reload that again. Oh, you know what I didn't do? I didn't redeploy. So what you have to do is you have to rebuild your extension. And you can see for text changes, that was pretty fast. Now it's redeployed. Now I'll go ahead and reload. And did it work? Yes. So now we've changed the text and we have this YouTube NBA sample command, which is pretty awesome. And if you invoke that command, now you'll see we have all of the different items that we've returning on that get items method. And I can search, and out of the box now I've already searched, right? And that's kind of pretty awesome. You'll notice here that there's nothing down here, right? So what we'd seen in the other example, so if I go to the extension that I've been working on, this view of NBA games, you'll notice that each of the list items actually have these things that you can invoke, basically, these commands that you can invoke nested inside of the list items. And that is coming into this concept of a no-op command. So in our version, right, we don't have any of those nested commands, but that's kind of the way that you can get more goodness out of all the things. And you can kind of have actions essentially that will let you kind of fly around any of your workflows, which is really neat. So right now what we've done, we've got the change text, we're changing the list items. I think if I revisit this to-do list page, this I think is done. We've changed the text to the top level command. We've modified the accompanying list page. Let's mark this as done. Boom, done. All right. Next thing we're going to do is add some icons and tags. So we're going to add some visual UI elements. It's super easy, and everything is basically just class-based and built on top of the extensions toolkit, which is kind of what I've been saying this whole time. So let's actually start with these items. So right now we have this set of items, and inside of the list item itself, there's a bunch of different things we can do, one of which is actually providing this thing called a tag. So there's a tags property essentially, which will just be an array of tags. And we can create a new tag here, and that tag can essentially have, let's make it December 6th, 2025, and I'll create another tag here, and we'll make this, I don't know, let's say there's a game at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, and I'm going to go ahead and take this, paste this a few times just to show how that might work, and let's go and we're going to restart this project. It's going to rebuild, it's going to redeploy, we're going to reload here on the command palette side. And now if I look inside of the YouTube NBA sample command, the command that we're working on together, boom, just like that, we have these awesome tags. So now that kind of is starting to look more and more like the NBA extension that I've been working on. We don't have icons yet, so there's missing icons here. And obviously this is all hard-coded, so we wouldn't want these to be hard-coded. But essentially you can see pretty quickly, it's kind of easy to create a list page. don't have to do all that much. It's really, the APIs are really, really nice. Um, so I think that probably, did I finish this? Oh, we didn't add any icons. Let's add an icon. So what I'm going to do now is actually show how to add icons, and it's really quite simple. There's also just an icon property, and it just takes in an icon data, I believe. And you can pass in a URL if you'd like. That is basically a PNG. And so one thing that I have inside of my command palette is these snippets. So this thing called snippet shelf, you can see there's a snippet shelf packaged application. And actually, I'll show this because if I launch the application, this is an application that in and of itself does stuff. It's not just a command palette application, but it also implements a command. So it implements this snippet shelf command. And you can see here that if I show items, I can actually see all these things that I've copied for this video, right? And I can paste. So I'm gonna go ahead and paste. And did that work? That didn't quite work. Uh-oh. Is this gonna paste? Let's try. Oh, control, I see. I hit the wrong thing, but there now you can see I have this this PNG that I'm going to use. It's mad at me because it cannot convert type icon data to icon info. So I messed up. This is incorrect. This should be called icon info. But essentially you can see that it's pretty simple to pass in an icon as well. And what I'll do is I'll kind of take this piece here and maybe we can show the top level command. It works pretty much identically. So if we go to this top level, this command item, we can also pass an icon for. So let me just actually paste the whole thing in. Icon equals new icon info. Boom, boom. All right. Okay, good. And the last thing I'll have to do is actually add a extra. All right, I think that's going to work. So now what I'll do is I will restart the application again. Boom, it's deployed. Let's go ahead and reload our extensions. Oh, look at that. Boom. There's an icon. So this is our command, but we added this icon, kind of hard coded it. And it doesn't look like a very good icon. We probably have to figure out the icon size and all that stuff. I don't want to do that right now, so we're not going to. But here you can see also an example, right? That icon stayed at the top. And again, this is hard coded, but now you can see how you can add an icon. I guess what we can also do, just while we're here, is add a description. So right now, my MVA extension, I don't actually make use of descriptions, but I do want to show that you can have essentially, I think it's called a subtitle. So you can have a subtitle, and that subtitle can be equal to anything you want that is a string. Yay, something like that maybe. And we'll save this. I will restart this. And I'll just show you what that subtitle looks like. So now we've deployed, we're gonna reload one more time. And if you look at this YouTube command, look at that. Now we have this subtitle. So if I wanted to make use of the subtitle, I could. I should also note that this is very basic tagging. You can change the color, etc. So maybe if we actually look at these sample pages, I can actually show some of the tags. Let's look at the tags. List page with details, maybe some of the icon, sample icon page. Okay, here you can see like these tags can be a lot more interesting. So the tags themselves can have icons inside of them. You can change the color of those tags. So maybe if I do list page with details, maybe this has some interesting tag colors. No, all right. Well, you can basically change the color of the tags, and there's a bunch of different pages that you can implement. So we're just building a very simple list page to start. But if folks are interested in other pages or going more into the weeds of how this extensibility all works and the APIs, we can also do that. So leave comments if that is interesting to you. So, all right, I think we've kind of done it. Oh no, experienced an error. That is okay. We are in the middle of developing. I'm not surprised if we've experienced an error. What I'll do is I'll shut this down and let's see if we can get rid of that and see if that goes away. So it seems like actually the to-do application kind of hit an error. So I think that's okay. Maybe what I'll do is I'll just reload again one more time, and maybe that'll help with this error that I'm seeing. There we go. Awesome. So what have we just done? We've added icons and tags. Boom, done with that. So at this point, what's really awesome is we haven't had to do that much work. We've been able to create an extension, which is literally an application on Windows, which is sweet. We've changed some text. We've understood how to change some of the text and play around with the commands, and we've added some icons and tags, which is really great. And so hopefully you can see like some of the power and you're inspired and some of the creativity juices are flowing, and you can figure out other things that you can do. But what I do want to show, because I feel like this is something that's really common, is how to fetch some data asynchronously. because hard-coded stuff is less fun. It's just less cool. We want to be able to go hit some website, hit some API, pull in some data, manipulate it, do things like that. And so I want to show how we can extend this get items to an asynchronous kind of a call. And I'll kind of explain what I mean by that. So inside of my NBA extension, you'll notice it loads for a second, and then you actually have all the games, right? So it's fetching that from the ESPN site, essentially. And inside, for example, the Hacker News extension, again, it's loading, and it's fetching all of the Hacker News articles. And let's see, is there another extension I have here that would do that as well? I think those are really, oh, I don't know if I'm logged into Mastodon, so that probably won't work. I guess those are really the ones, right? But the point is that we want to be able to do stuff asynchronously. We don't want to just have a hard-coded list. And so what I've done to make this easier is I've kind of just already created, if you see one of my snippets, I've already created essentially a bunch of code that's going to do this asynchronously, and we'll just walk through it. I think that'll save us time because it's not super, super interesting. You can learn about asynchronous calls and other things elsewhere. I think that this is just something that I want to show kind of fast. So if why do I keep doing this? Paste, there we go. Now I've pasted this. The big takeaway here, and let me sort of show, the big takeaway here is that inside of get items, this is what you really need to understand. Inside of get items, you can call an asynchronous thing. So we're going to try to call this thing, it's called fetch games async, and then we're going to get the result from it. So we're going to go do something asynchronously. It's going to take some amount of time, and then we're going to wait for that, and then we'll return the items. And inside of that, we will have that nice little loading state, right? So as it's waiting, again, I'll show one more time. When I do the NBA games, you'll see for a second, it's kind of fast. There's that loading status bar at the top. And so that's the big thing here is you can create an asynchronous function. And so now you'll notice I have this asynchronous fetch games asynchronously. All that's doing is getting games from some ESPN API URL. You don't have to worry about that. That's just where I'm getting the games information from. And it's doing some JSON deserializing. So for those of you who do not know the term deserializing or serializing, essentially it just takes a JSON object and it's going to take all those JSON string, I guess, it's going to take that and put it into C# classes, right? So we have to deserialize this response, and you'll see there's some errors here, and I'll explain why in a second. Going through, not so interesting, but what we do here is we create a list item from the game. So we've parsed basically the response that we get, and then we create basically these list items. This is a lot of custom logic for the NBA game, so I don't want to go too deep into the weeds. But the big thing here is that we're actually just going to be returning a list item that has a title and some tags, and I'll have all the code on GitHub so you can take a peek at it for the actual NBA extension as well. But that's kind of the gist of it. So you can always do something asynchronously. And again, you can take a look at my code to go deeper into the weeds. We're not going to do that in this video. But one thing I will show is that we need a list of, there we go. We need a list of classes. So I need to actually show the classes that we can deserialize, take this JSON string and put all the things into a C# class. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to, for cleanliness, I'll put that into a data folder. Create a new folder, we'll call it data. And then in this folder, I'll create a new file, a new item, new class, and we'll call it ESPN schedule response. Okay. And then again, what I've done is I've already created a snippet to make this go a little bit faster. If I go to my snippets, I'm going to go ahead and paste this snippet, and there you go. Now look at this file. All it is a bunch of classes that have these JSON properties, right? And so essentially, what I'll show now is if I go to, this page, you can see here, here's the thing that I'm reaching out to, right? It's a huge JSON string. I mean, look at this thing, it's massive. And it's got tons of nested objects inside of it, and it's kind of a mess. And the deserialization, all it's doing is taking that JSON string and throwing it into these classes. And that way I can actually reach out and like talk to these different objects. And so here you can see we're deserializing into this ESPN schedule response, which is this response. And then, yeah, basically I'm now able to call things like games and I have this like game class. And this game class, all it is it's coming from here. It's exactly what it is inside of this new response class that I have, this object, right? So that's pretty much it for how you can do stuff asynchronously. Let's go ahead and build this and see if this actually works. So in theory, what we should see is, YouTube sample extension page. I've changed the namespace without thinking about it. So if I go in here all I have to do is change the namespace to what it was before. All right, I was a little bit silly and I messed around with the namespaces. You can probably just ignore that entire minute or so. I'll probably fast forward that. So, anyways, I had accidentally copied, well, not accidentally, I intentionally copied over some stuff to save us time. But what I didn't think about was that when I was working on this previously, I had a different namespace. So there's like these namespace clashes happening. Don't worry about it. Not really super important for this video. But we're going to wait for this to finish deploying. And then we will reload. All right, so we're reloading. It's deployed. Let's go ahead and see if we have this YouTube command. All right, so we have this command. It's got that icon. We invoke it and see now it's loading and boom, these are real games. And you can see here as well, something that's really cool is like, I don't have to do anything for that search to work. So out of the box, I just start typing and now it's already filtered my list. And we don't have any actions that happen, but that's basically now we have like a dynamic thing. And you can kind of look at different async patterns and I'll put a bunch of sample extensions. So a lot of these extensions are open source. So you can kind of play around and see what the best practices are. But now what we've done, again, really the big thing here is that in the get items method, we're doing this asynchronous thing. So now we have an application that we've built that provides a command to the command palette that goes and fetches stuff off of the interwebs and puts it into this awesome list. And we didn't have to do any sorting logic, and it kind of just shows, this is real. Like these are the actual times that these teams play, and there's some string cleaning that we could do, and eventually with that kind of same approach, that's how I've been building my NBA extension. And I will be showing next in a couple of videos probably how to publish this. So again, we want to figure out how to publish these extensions both to Winget so we can install it directly within the command palette. And also I want to show how to publish to the Microsoft Store. I'll probably start with Winget, but I think both of those are really, really exciting. So I think that's pretty much it. If I go to my to-dos, we've now fetched some data asynchronously. Go us, we rule. And the last thing I guess I wanted to do was just a quick summary. So all in all, I hope this video was helpful. I hope it was interesting. And if you use Windows, I do highly recommend the Windows Command Palette. I think it's early on in its life, and it's going to be even more powerful in the months to come, is my guess. I do think that the extensions are incredible, and you can install those both again from Winget and from the store. And you can create your own extension just with a command itself, directly from the command palette. You can create an extension and it's pretty easy. It gives you the scaffolding, and before you know it, you'll have an extension that works. Now, if you have any ideas for things you want to build, put that in the comments below. Share with us what you're building. If you want to have an open GitHub repository, which is what I'm doing, and I'll share with you all, I highly recommend you share that with us and we can see what you're building and we can contribute. We can build all together. And if you have any questions, thoughts, things you want to learn, things you want me to talk about, I'm happy to take recommendations. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful. At the very least, I hope you're excited to try out the Windows Command Palette. My name is Jordy Doomy, and I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. Until next time, thank you. See you later.